Welcome to Clean Air Action's award-winning podcast, Cleaning Up Dirty. We talk politics with non-toxic people. I'm Liz Green-Schultz. I'm the political director of a nonprofit called Clean Air Action.
And I'm Sean Hoffman, legislative director. Liz and I run Clean Air Action, which is the proud sister organization of the Clean Air Council, the oldest environmental and public health organization in Pennsylvania.
Together, we fight for your constitutional right to breathe healthy air. Over here at Clean Air Action, we fight dirty with clean. That applies to anyone who messes with our political and civil rights, including corporations and politicians.
Today, we are so excited to have our executive director of Clean Air Council, Alex Bomstein.
Woo!
Hey, everybody.
We've been wanting to have you on the pod for ages, my friend. Thank you so much for coming. We're super stoked. We're super excited to have you here.
Well, I'm just glad to be here. This is exciting.
Yeah, man.
I've dreamed of this many a night.
We're finally making it happen. Alex is a lawyer who's led teams that blocked 3 dirty power plants from opening and polluting Pennsylvania's air. And in the last 2 years, the Clean Air Council has stopped nearly 14 million tons of greenhouse gas emissions from being released into the air, which is the equivalent of taking more than 3 million gasoline cars off the road permanently, annually going forward. That's a pretty big deal.
It's huge. I ran the numbers on that like 10 times because I was like, that can't be. 3 million cars off the road?
And 14 million tons. I feel like sometimes you hear those stats and it's like, oh, is it some like weird? Like, no, it's a ton. A ton is a ton. That's a gigantic amount of stuff that would otherwise be into the air.
That's really, really wild. So Alex runs our sister org, and we are very excited to have him in the hot seat today. And since this is a political podcast and we like to talk about some spicy stuff, we keep snacks on hand. So, you ready?
This is my favorite part.
I don't know if it's mine.
It's not Sean's favorite part.
It's always a little bit of a, what's going to come out of that bag? And how long has it been in there?
And I deliberately avoided asking about the snacks because I wanted to be surprised.
You gotta. That's part of what we do here.
I love the element
Snack
of surprise with the snacks. Now, a few minutes ago, Sean mentioned pickles, and I was like, damn it, what a missed opportunity because Alex is vegan and pickles are vegan. I should have just brought pickles, but I didn't. There's nothing pickle flavored. I didn't want to torture Sean too much. Oh,
man. Well, if it's pickle flavored, but it's not a pickle, that's kind of a red flag anyway. So.
Yeah, a red flag that I love and run towards. I love a pickle-flavored snack, as you're aware.
And Liz has enlightened me through her snack purchases of just how many products exist in the world that are pickle-flavored. I don't understand. I don't understand why people are like, you know what? I miss a slimy, salty thing in my life. I got to go get some pickle flavor.
I will say, though, I wasn't thinking about this until this very moment, but salt and vinegar potato chips are kind of pickle flavored. They don't advertise that way, but they are, and they are good.
It's a thing. Pickle adjacent.
I will say that.
So vegans eat potato chips, you're saying? You eat fun snacks?
I mean, there might be some weird potato chips out there, and I can't vouch for every potato chip.
I don't know if we've said this on the pod. I used to be vegan many years ago. Not for that long. It was a lot to commit to, so I commend you for your commitment to that. But then I was vegetarian for a long time.
For a while, she's like, no animals or anything. Now you're like, give me all the beasts.
Yeah, I don't want anything too healthy.
You're all over the map, man.
All over the map.
Including the most dangerous prey.
That's right.
Right?
We'll have to try that in 2026.
Is that what's in the bag? Is that the snack?
Yes,
it shouldn't
be. People.
It'd
That's
be a
what's
terrible choice for Alex.
Soylent Green.
That might be the hardest I've ever laughed on the podcast. We're coming out with a bang.
That's a challenge.
Yeah,
man.
Setting the bar high here. So I see you're both on the edge of your seats. Now, I'm going to call this a relatively mild choice for me. I have the...
Oh, this is pretty mild.
Vegan peach sour rings and the vegan watermelon sour rings, both from Whole Foods. And I picked them because I thought... I'm going to need vegan snacks for the podcast while I happen to actually love these two. Have you guys had these?
I think I've had the peach rings before. Those are good.
I've had the peach rings, I believe. I don't think I've had the watermelon ones.
Well, let's give it a try.
But yeah, this is positively mild.
Okay, I'll take a watermelon.
What's controversial about these guys?
I
guess we'll find out as soon as we put them in our mouths. I'm not a big fan of watermelon generally, but this is good.
And it's a little sour. It's not too sour. Liz likes heavy sour.
I will also take all the sour. Just that pure crystallized citric acid or whatever, you know? Just go straight for it.
Makes you pucker, you know?
Love that.
Mm-hmm.
Grab a handful.
I do feel
See
like
if it
I need to
picks it up.
compare the peach.
Yeah. Peach is a little more mild.
I like the peach better.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a fan of peaches more than watermelons anyway, but that's my take.
They're pretty good. I mean, I feel like these are, it's funny, they're not controversial enough. They're
I love that.
Jeff Bezos is going to cry into his bed tonight.
Yeah. It's like tomorrow morning we're getting on those peach rings.
Man, I love cleaning up dirty, and they're disappointed in my snack.
They're not sour enough.
Oh, no. I mean, I'm still very satisfied. I will say that.
It's a good snack.
It feels like I'm going to need to step my game up snack-wise more in 2026, and that's okay. That's a good way to start the year, with that, knowing that.
As much as I hate to say it, I think the more controversial Sean finds the snack, I think the more fun we have with it. I don't know what I'm bringing down on myself by saying this.
Yeah, be careful what you wish for.
Terrible snacks. And she finds weird places to buy them too.
I'm watching the gleam appear in Liz's eyes right now.
Evil cackle. Yeah, she's like, that's not a place where people normally buy snacks, but I'm going in there and getting some stuff for the podcast. You know? So you never know, guys. You never know what's coming next. So after a mild peach and watermelon episode, here's a pickle thing that you didn't even know was possible.
Sounds
Sean.
like an excellent challenge. Love this. And speaking of excellent challenges, I would love to hear, Alex, about why you became an environmentalist.
Oh, man.
Yeah, let's get down to it.
I'm loudly working my way through the rest of this watermelon ring right now.
That's also part of the
part
fun.
of the fun, yeah.
The chewy sounds.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've been an environmentalist as long as I've known the concept. And for me, it just kind of boils down to you have the human world and all this wonderful stuff that is the rest of creation, you know? And how could you mess it up? I mean, it sounds very basic and kind of stupid, but the trees can't speak up for themselves. The animals can't speak up for themselves. Right. Only people can influence people in the way we need to be influenced to protect the rest of our world.
It's very Dr. Seuss of you.
And it's getting really short shrift. I mean, if you look at the amount of money and time people spend on the human world compared to the natural world more broadly, I mean, there's no comparison. It is, a tiny, minuscule percentage of human efforts go into everything else in the whole world. And we people suffer the consequences of that. And I'm not going to go on a whole rant because I could obviously talk all day on this stuff, but...
Rant away.
Yeah, man.
Uh-oh.
The floor is yours. That's kind of why we have you on here. And I think I've eventually reluctantly revealed to you that I was not an environmentalist when I started in this role.
That's all good.
And now you're wearing a green mafia shirt. You're part of the green problem.
Oh,
now.
man.
Yeah, what's up? Yeah, but I didn't get it before this job because nobody around me did. I've always been a fan of the natural world, but I didn't realize that we were devastating it.
Yeah.
And Sean has watched this journey for me.
Indeed.
As I've joined the dark side over here with the environmentalist, but you grew up with this sense, is that right?
I did, yeah. I was in high school. I joined our high school environmental club.
Nice.
And it wasn't to chase after a potential romantic partner. It was for...
That's how everybody does it.
It was not.
Everybody knows that all the babes are in the Enviro Club. I say this as a formal president.
Not know this.
Former president of my high school's environmental club.
Well, you were the babe.
Yeah, that's right.
Environmental actually was the one club I was not in law school. I think I might have signed once, but I ran half the student orgs at Temple Law and was in the other half minus environmental.
Well, you know what, though? I think that's really interesting, though, Liz, because in law school, you were this, hyper social justice warrior. And I think this is a great insight to kind of what Alex was just talking about how you were in all of the things. You found all of those causes more urgent and more worthwhile than the environment.
Yep.
And I think that kind of applies to the majority of the human race. The way I got into this, Alex, is almost exactly how you did. I was a small child in the backyard frolicking amongst the plants and the animals and stuff, went to the zoo once a week, and eventually came to the conclusion of like, this natural world, particularly wildlife, was always my first love. Like, we can't replicate this.
Yeah.
And whether you come at it from a place of logic and science or a place of faith or a bit of both, we have this one planet. We're on this magical ball of rock floating in space. And upon it, all of this amazing life just like generated, just became. And we're like, oh, well, that's cool or whatever, but we got to build a strip mall. And like, that endangered species is slowing us down, man. And so that's the major disconnect there. And again, for me and Alex and I think some others perhaps that do this work, it kind of does boil down to like, this is the most precious thing that we simply cannot remake. And we dump on it all the time, literally and figuratively, in the name of these really, really short-sighted, shallow goals, i.e. like pure profit or strip malls or whatever the case may be. And it just feels like we're so out of balance as humans.
I thought that was life. And was the world and was the goals of the world to have, technological advancement and better shopping malls and more. And now that I'm really easing into a different lifestyle, it's wild to feel that unfold and watch that unfold. You mentioned faith. I was not planning to talk about faith in this episode, but faith is a really big element of it for me. Things just feel differently to me. And one weird little example, my home decor, I have as much of the natural world as I can in it. So like sticks and branches and lichens and moss.
She's always picking up trash and stuff and bringing it in. And
that is...
It's pretty trash, but it's still mostly trash. This is Liz's gateway to the natural world, everybody.
We call it addressing the waste problem.
Yeah, exactly.
It's effective recycling.
Thank you, Alex. I'm addressing the waste problem.
Upcycling. Yes.
By upcycling. I'm trying to have this beautiful moment, this like meaningful moment, and he's like, yeah, she picks up a lot of trash. She's calling me right now.
I'm sorry.
It's a fact. Like, you walk through the city with me and I see something that somebody
Sean, can you help me pick up that tree branch that froze through that guy's front window? He's going to throw it out.
This is accurate. But anyway, so I have this big branch right by my door that I got where my dad is from. A few months ago, I visited a cousin I hadn't seen in 30 years. And I thought, oh, it'd be really cool to have a branch from middle of nowhere, upstate New York in my house. And I just kind of stuck it there and didn't think much more about it. But I was standing there staring at it, just looking at the lichens and the moss and the colors and the shapes. And you can really fall into that. And I think that's how I've started to become captivated by our natural worlds. Like you losers.
Welcome to the club.
It's pulling me in little by little over to the dark side.
That's what it does.
But when I went to law school, I went to pursue civil rights. And I didn't know that it is a civil right in Pennsylvania, that we do have a constitutional right.
That's right.
To breathe clean air and to have a healthy and protected environment. So you got me one way or another.
I want to get back to Alex here and hear more about what you want to say on this, Alex. But I mean, for me, it's so foundational, like, because literally it was here before any human had any thoughts about civilization or laws or the economy. It is just life. And so for me, it's hard to like prioritize anything above that because it underpins everything.
And it's the only thing that's real.
Yeah.
That's really real. And that's a hard thing to start to realize, that the life I was living, I call it my old life or my past life, was really structured around something that was not real, that was a human creation to boost human capture of our natural world, because it's, you see the beautiful natural resources and it's like, yeah, can I pull them out and like turn them into energy? I think that would be great. Yeah, let's do that. Now, Alex, are you opposed to technological progress generally?
I have a lot of thoughts about this. The term progress, right? Like, you need to unpack that term. What does it mean? So,
love this.
So new things can be good. They can be bad. They're new things. Sometimes people mean by progress whatever's new, whatever's coming next. Sometimes it's great. Sometimes it's not. I certainly love things that make people's lives better, that improve the world we live in. Some of that is new stuff, and some new stuff takes us backwards. So, yeah, a little bit of a more nuanced answer to that.
I love that.
Yeah.
As I have acclimated to this world, I feared and expected judgment and you can't do that, you shouldn't be having that. And that actually has not been my experience at all in this world, thank God, or I probably wouldn't still be here, honestly. I'm thinking of the most extreme among us. There's a name that immediately jumps to mind that we don't need to name our colleague on the podcast. But
Are you talking about me? Is this what it is? Is this... I'm the most extreme.
Liz has read my diary, and this is the problem that she's dancing around right now.
Exactly. Both and no, of course. Person who is known for being pretty excitable over plastics, but even he is not.
And this actually could apply to any number of people, but I do think I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, we don't need to name him on the pod, although he would probably be proud if we did. But even he is not anti all plastics. Like, my experience has been that environmentalists are actually quite reasonable and overarchingly pragmatic. We just want. I said we. It's happening. Dun, dun, dun. We just want to limit it to the areas where we actually need that, or it actually makes sense to do that. And that is not all areas, but we are frequently screaming into the abyss because so many people don't view the world this way and so aren't processing things through a critical lens. But
well, to go back to sort of trying to thread this needle of nuance, right? There are things we can aim for and there are things that are achievable, and they're not necessarily the same thing. And, I think from the work that Clean Air Council does, right, we work within the world of the actual and the possible.
Definitely.
So we're not going to be trying to, butt our heads up against a wall for something that would be great, but we can't achieve. We want to make concrete improvements in the lives of everybody, right?
Literally.
Yeah.
I've said that a lot of times as well. I go and speak to law students or a group of whomever, and I'm like, I'm working for every single one of you, man. Like, none of you are paying me, but
Yet.
yes. And we joke too, like, we're working to put ourselves out of a job, basically. And I think this is a major disconnect or point of misunderstanding or lack of understanding between environmentalists and those who don't consider themselves environmentalists, or even perhaps on the other side of the spectrum, say an industrialist, or essentially like so many people, and this is very timely because the current administration in Washington absolutely continues to relentlessly move in this direction of money and profit is the measure of, as you said, progress. If we're making more money and building more stuff, then we're making more progress than if we had less of that, then less progress.
Except when it's not convenient. Like just the other day, EPA under, this administration said that they're going to stop actually counting the dollar value of saving people's lives in doing new regulations.
Right. Because, and this is exactly what I was...
important change.
Oh, yeah, yes. Exactly what I was getting at. Because to me, that is an extremely worthy, like, quantifiable way, like how much money are we saving by saving lives, quantifying a thing that's more in the feeling zone of more in the like, well, maybe this isn't so much dollars and cents. I mean, I'm constantly saying all the time that the world of healthcare and treating people is a place where for-profit shouldn't exist, right? You're trying to heal people. Who gives a damn if you're making money while you're doing it? Those two things are counterproductive to me. And so I think that we see this so often in this space where we talk to legislators, and one instance really sticks out in my mind during a hearing in Harrisburg where the Clean Air Council was accused of essentially shutting coal plants down in Pennsylvania and destroying the economy and livelihoods of the people who live there. And it was like, wow, is this really how environmentalists are perceived? Why on earth would we want to? We're not trying to screw up anybody's life, man. We're just trying to improve the world for everyone while also ensuring prosperity. We're not trying to take bread out of anybody's mouth, but we're also trying to save this planet that we live on, every single one of us. And sometimes you can't do that through a pure profit calculus.
Amen.
And ultimately, if we aren't doing all of this to protect human life, then what's the point? Isn't that what society is supposed to be about? Promoting advancement and balancing quality of life.
Quality of life.
Depends on who you ask.
Exactly. There's a big difference between surviving and thriving, right? Surviving and thriving. And I think that's fundamentally what many environmentalists believe, that there is an intrinsic value to protecting this planet, the quality of the air, the quality of the water, the natural wonders that we have out there. And that's essentially what the Environmental Rights Amendment in the Pennsylvania Constitution says.
Yeah. I mean, this is our home that we have the incredible good fortune to be born into. And, you know, why would we mess up that wonderful home, this splendid home?
Yeah, indeed.
And as we're talking about quality of life and progress, of course, technology jumps to mind for me. I searched my work email, and the term data centers barely existed in my work email before last year. But in 2025, all of a sudden, everybody's talking about data centers.
Huge.
And when I first started hearing about them, I didn't know what they were. I did not know about the environmental consequences. I did not know about the costs of them being passed off to taxpayers and other ratepayers in the same utility area. So, Alex, tell us a little bit about data centers and the work that you're doing.
It is my pleasure. Yeah, honestly, it feels like that's all anybody talks about these days. And it's hard to really convey the sense of scale that comes with this area, right? So an enormous portion, like a large fraction of investment in the US right now is for data centers, for AI, but a lot of that is for data centers, which are the physical infrastructure.
Yeah, I saw a statistic about that was like, and I'm not going to get the number exactly right, but it was something like over half of American economic growth over the last year or two was all AI.
Yeah.
Straight, it was like AI and healthcare. That's like the only two sectors that are growing right now. And it's a gigantic portion.
And what a terrifying statistic, and what an obvious looming bubble.
Yeah. And I mean, one of the worst parts about it is that the value proposition that these companies are selling for AI is basically replacing people, replacing people with machines. You know, they want to fire people and replace them with big warehouses of machines.
I'm seeing scenes from The Matrix while you're talking, because it's literally what The Matrix is about.
It honestly is.
Have you guys ever been inside like a server farm or a data center?
I was wondering if you're going like one of those pods in The Matrix. Like,
have you been to
Have
The
you
Matrix?
been in one of those pods?
I might be right now, but
We
would
all
I know?
We all might.
Man.
How
And
would I know?
The
Yeah, let's
robots
get into
are like,
simulation theory. No.
we got to keep an eye on those podcasts,
I need
guys.
Neo right now,
Yeah.
please.
Anyway, so this is years and years and years ago, well before the rise of data centers. And I had an internship and just had an opportunity to explore. I was interning at Bloomberg. I was actually doing environmental things at the office. I had nothing to do with the finance or anything like that. And when I was there, they were like, "Oh, would you like to go see the server farm, the data center that we have for this place?" And at the time, this is at least a decade ago, maybe more. So it was pretty cutting edge, and it is like a bunker. There's no sign that identified it as Bloomberg server building. No sign. Heavily guarded. You had to go through the security. I mean, the structure itself is physically thick. Like you could run a Mack truck into the side of this building and it wouldn't do a thing. And you go in and it's like heavy and dark in there. You could kind of hear the whir of the machines and all the little blinky lights, and it's just as Alex described, it is a warehouse-sized building filled to multiple stories, above ground, underground, with just computer parts. If you've ever seen like the back of your office's server unit or all the things the copier's plugged into and all the internet and stuff, it's like that, but a gigantic building full of it.
And a big difference between a giant modern AI data center and a warehouse is that the gigantic AI data center could use more energy than like, okay, so I'll give an example. It's hard to even understand these, but there's a data center being proposed for Northern Delaware that would use more power than all the households in Delaware put together. Nearly as much power as twice all the households in Delaware put together.
That's wild.
It is unimaginable. It is unimaginable.
And why do they use so much power? What is it about AI that requires twice the power of Delaware's residents?
Yeah, you can kind of picture this yourself because, you know, most of us have laptops, and sometimes you literally have the laptop on your lap and you can feel it getting hot sometimes. Or if you're doing something that has a lot of activity on that computer, it gets hot, right?
Yeah.
That's a lot of power being used right there in that tiny little book-sized thing. Right now, imagine an entire warehouse filled to the brim
with laptops.
With these laptops stacked on top of each other, on and on and on, far as the eye can see.
Yeah.
Right now, imagine also all that heat that's being generated. That needs to go somewhere. You can't just have it turn the warehouse into an oven,
right?
Because all that technology will get baked, right?
Yeah.
So you need to
not in the fun
air
way.
condition. Yeah, it's not fun getting baked.
Not in the server farm.
Not in the server farm. And you know, these are laptops. These aren't laptops, but this is computer technology that is running all the time.
Yep.
So the power usage for this is creating an incredible problem for the grids that run our electrical system in this country. Because, you know, imagine you suddenly have Delaware with twice the population.
Right.
That it has, right? Like, how do you update our infrastructure, which is decades old for the most part, to handle a boom, an incredible boom of investment in all these new data centers all at once?
And that's part of the justification for passing the costs off onto the taxpayers, right?
Exactly.
Because who is more equipped to afford the updates to the grid that are necessary because of the data centers? Corporate industry, of course. But these costs get passed off onto taxpayers and other ratepayers without a second thought. And I can understand the justification for that as well. I just personally don't agree with it at all.
Yeah, and you have all these promised benefits. Sometime in the future, AI will do all these amazing things, but what you have happening is right now, we're feeling the impacts on our electrical bills. Right now, we're feeling the impacts of these new, not just data centers, which are themselves gigantic blights on the landscape, but power plants to power those data centers, right? And those power plants are there's activity building them happening right now for some promised AI revolution that even the biggest proponents of AI are saying, you know, maybe could end humanity.
Right. The
So
worst case scenario.
Yeah, that's the, you know,
Terminator
what we're hoping
kinda,
for.
Yeah.
So we have The Matrix, we have Terminator, any other 90s movies we should be on the lookout for.
I feel like the Terminator covers everything all
Yeah.
all in one. It covers really
And
all
we're
of it.
speeding right into Mad Max. So
It's certainly daunting. It absolutely is. I mean, both the short-term and the long-term effects. It's kind of fascinating from a political perspective right now. There seems to be across the political spectrum, left and right, a lot of resistance to data centers. Like, nobody wants a data center in their backyard. This is one of those things. And we see, you know, not in my backyard, NIMBYism in a lot of contexts. But this one in particular,
and I think the politicians and people who are like, yeah, I'll take a data center in my backyard, don't know what they are and what the consequences are going to be to that community.
Some of them, right, those who are gung-ho about it, you know, I think they see the potential increase in tax revenue, and that's kind of it. And then to your point, Alex, so then they're kind of going to worry about the promise of the other stuff down the road. But I was just had a conversation with a Republican legislator just yesterday who's based out of Luzerne County in Pennsylvania, who is...
They're getting hit hard up there.
He said there are 8 proposed data centers right now in his district, which is just a portion of that county. And he is vehemently opposed to data centers coming in. And the reason I want to highlight this is because I feel like this is typically the territory of Democrats or more pro-environment, pro-public health folks who are like, no, we don't want to build this thing. But as Alex pointed out, not only are they dramatically raising electricity rates and the costs for folks everywhere, but they're also changing the character of the communities in the landscape. And this is what the legislator had said to me as well. These aren't just like single buildings. These are campuses.
That's right.
Gigantic, major footprint in a literal sense. So, you put just one of these down in an area and all of a sudden it doesn't look or feel the same way that it did, let alone 8. I mean, that's just wild how fast and furious these things are going.
Yeah. And I mean, really, who wants a giant, ugly, humming, polluting box in their neighborhood?
The noise, that's another thing. This legislator had pointed out that these things can be really loud, that the relentless hum or the other activity that goes along with just maintaining these things, it's a lot. It really impacts folks.
Which, of course, affects the quiet enjoyment of the land that people decided, I want to live here, raise my family here. And now it completely transforms the quality of the community. And I'm sure also the wildlife. And it affects the water too, right? Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I mean, data centers are very often big water users because all that cooling that happens, that's generally done by water. And while there is technology where you can have closed loop cooling, that's not the most common form of technology that is being used. And so you're sucking up huge amounts of water and it sort of evaporating it into the air.
Yeah.
That can be hard if you have this gigantic facility taking up a huge amount of water. It's in one spot, right? And there's only so much water that can be supported in one spot. So you're taking it out of the ground and drying up the aquifer. You're taking it out of the river or creek and damaging that.
And completely depleting the local water supply for the residents, which has already happened for various data centers.
Yeah, one thing that people sometimes forget when talking about data centers is, while this is an enormous boom in data centers that we're having right now, and this is unprecedented, there are a lot of operational data centers already in different parts of the country, including especially in Northern Virginia. And there are people who've been dealing with these issues for a long time, who've been shouting from the rooftops, like, don't let this come to you. Mm-hmm. You don't want what we have.
Yeah.
Can you imagine you just go to turn your faucet on and there's nothing there? Which, of course, makes me think of fracking. When I was a high school teacher, long before I ever thought I would become an environmentalist civil rights lawyer, one of my students did a piece about fracking, and she was like, Miss Schultz, they turn on the water and fire comes out. Like, that's right. Really unthinkable to most of us who haven't experienced that. And now Pennsylvanians, if we don't take steps to protect Pennsylvania and Pennsylvanians, are going to be seeing that again from data centers.
Yeah. Well, that's right. And, in particular, a lot of the Pennsylvania leaders who try to sway these things are trying to get all the data center power generation to come from gas. And that obviously means more fracking everywhere in all the communities that we work in.
And that hits me differently now that I understand that industry better. Yeah. Now that I have colleagues who can list the horrors of living near a well pad.
Like sometimes fire might come out of your faucet. That is what the fracking can result in.
And the people who have had their loved ones torn from them due to this over years. It's for those listening outside of Pennsylvania or outside of fracking territory, really, it is just an unimaginable tragedy that we've been experiencing for a long time now in Pennsylvania.
I'd certainly never heard the term fractivist before this job, and it's a term that refers to a really passionate group of people who was outspoken, as I would be, as I kind of am at this point. And we see, I think it's 4 to 7 times the childhood cancer rate in the areas around fracking well pads. And if I'm not mistaken, a senator who I will not name literally said to that community, then why don't you just move? this is what they're getting from
that's
government.
the empathy that we have here in our mainstream politicians in Pennsylvania.
Well, and
thankfully not all of them, but
no, absolutely not all of them.
It's commonplace enough that we really wanted to call attention to it because it's completely horrifying and terrifying. And we want to believe that government is there to protect us. And that's just not what we see as environmentalists in Pennsylvania.
No, we see there are a lot of good people in government who are trying, but the general gist of it is not that.
I think this comes back to what we were talking about earlier, though, about this concept of there are some people like us having this conversation right now who are like, okay, well, we got to think about more than just the dollars and cents, though, because maybe there are people near here who are really getting sick. Maybe there are people who aren't so near here who are also getting sick as a result of this. What does this look like for us as a society down the road if we continue to do this?
And you know, I think the failure to think long term is behind a lot of this.
Absolutely.
So, you know, this is my daily job. I've been at Clean Air Council for a very long time at this point, 11 years. And, you know, you never hear the conversation about, well, the fossil fuels are going to run out. And what do we do then?
Yeah.
But they're going to run out. I mean, it's literally, they are a non-renewable resource by definition. They will not be around forever. So I don't know when exactly that's going to happen, but maybe it's 100 years from now. It'll be too expensive to be worth getting any fossil fuels. And then what will we have a legacy of? We will have a legacy of depleted aquifers. We will have a legacy of poisoned land, poisoned air, poisoned water. And we're already seeing that. We are experiencing that with coal, right?
Absolutely.
Coal is less and less economical every day. And the coal industry has retreated enormously. It's still active in Pennsylvania, but it's retreated enormously. But we're going to be dealing with the legacy of, you know, like acids from the mines, you know, coming into our water. We're going to be dealing with that practically in perpetuity, right?
Well, we are now, right? I wonder how many listeners to this podcast realize there is currently a town on fire.
Oh, that's right.
Good old Centralia, Pennsylvania.
Centralia, Pennsylvania, about an hour and a half from here. And everybody was evacuated from the town. I believe there are 5 residents who refused to leave. But it's so mind-blowing to me. The land is literally on fire from a coal fire from, I believe, the 50s.
And people don't think about, you know, we have so many incredible assets in our region, you know, Pennsylvania, Ohio, West Virginia, New York, New Jersey, Delaware. We have incredible farmland. We have incredible industries and people working in those industries that you can do forever. You know, you can farm the land forever if you treat it well. And, you know, farmers know how to treat the land well.
Absolutely.
You know, but you don't treat it well, you know, if you let it be despoiled by the fossil fuel industry or other industries like that. There's a thing that happens in land remediation where people, you know, rather than cleaning up the land, sometimes they say, no, let's just put a cap on it and say that, you know, you can't dig into it.
Right.
That cap is supposed to be forever, right? So they're abandoning the concept of cleaning up the land. They're saying, oh, well, we can't do that. Well, how long can you increase the area of land that you can never dig into?
Well,
forever?
People live here, right?
Exactly.
Well, again,
we'll just casually bury some toxins around. And
and I think this is, again, kind of related to some of the things we've already talked about here. There are so many people still in the 21st century who have this idea of like the world is a limitless place where we just bury our waste under the dirt and then we can't see it anymore. We dump it in the ocean. Oh, good. Problem solved. Well, it turns out, in fact, that you can fill up the ocean with stuff. You can fill up all of the air on Earth with stuff. And we've done it. We've already reached that point. And yet you've got that sort of mindset of like, oh, well, the Earth is really, really big. And like, yeah, there's always more dirt for us to like screw up. But also this idea of like fossil fuels forever. And I've been struggling with this in my own mind of late and sort of trying to talk to folks outside of this work about it, of kind of like, what do you think civilization is going to look like in 100 years? Do you really think we're still going to be driving, you know, gasoline-powered cars, just like we were in the 20th century. And we have so much of this short-sightedness. I say this a lot, too. The work that we're having to do, and this is not just in the environmental space, this applies to foreign policy space, civil rights space, you name it. So much of what we're doing in the 21st century is to fix the short-sighted messes that people in charge made in the 20th century.
Exactly.
For short-term gain, because they didn't think ahead about what's going to happen 30, 40, 50 years down the road if we keep doing this. But we're making a hell of a lot of money right now. So don't worry about that, dude. Just keep digging, keep drilling, keep screwing over like the little guys and like meddling with this country or that country. And boy, did that work out good, huh? Didn't that work out well? We're really, but not that we don't have fires burning literally and figuratively all over the planet here.
And, that just takes us right back to the data centers and AI issue. There's this quote,
Precisely.
I'm not going to be able to repeat it verbatim, but I think it was Sam Altman who said something like, well, you know what? There will be a lot of incredible companies built along the way.
Thank goodness.
It's like, oh, okay, well, that's our legacy for our children.
Run by machines, I assume.
Right?
Yeah. Because it's not like they create jobs for the community.
No, they destroy jobs. If all AI did was help people in their jobs, it would not be a multi-trillion-dollar industry, right?
Right.
It would be a much smaller industry because there's not that much money to be made. There's money to be made by laying people off.
Yeah.
Whether AI can actually accomplish that is a different story, but people are going to try.
Right. And I also want to quickly give mention to the petrochemical industry, which in many respects, we've talked a lot about fossil fuels and their impacts and how they operate, but
What's a petrochemical, Sean?
Oh my goodness.
I mean, the quick and
Or
dirty
Alex,
version.
you seem excited about
Alex could
jumping in.
certainly. It's a
I always get
derivative.
excited about petrochemicals. I wake up in the morning and petrochemicals.
They're so tasty. Yeah, I mean, it's chemicals derived from petroleum. They make up the foundation for most of the plastics and countless other consumer products and bits and pieces of so many things that we use. But as we pointed out earlier, fossil fuels are limited by definition. Eventually, we will have sucked them all out of the ground. And I think the petroleum industry knows that as well as anybody, better than anybody. And so they're trying to make petrochemicals, the plastics and all that stuff, kind of their current side gig that's going to become, and they hope, their main gig, which I think was a paraphrase from one of our early guests, Heather McTeer-Toney, who said that. And we see that a lot here in Pennsylvania.
Oh my goodness. And the amount that we spend to attract petrochemical companies that are going to pollute our air, pollute our water, and provide all sorts of plastics that are going to pollute everybody, including all of our body tissue and our fetal tissue, right? Like the amount of money we spend to accomplish those very bad goals.
Yeah, for a handful of jobs.
Right?
And
$1.6 billion for the Shell cracker plant alone.
Massive amount of money.
Is that the tax subsidy?
That's the tax subsidy.
And most of the profits are going to the big boys at the top. Yeah, there's some people that have jobs at the cracker plant, but to Alex's point, we get this little short-term benefit and a really small number of people benefit big, and then all of the rest of us are ultimately paying for the negative long-term effects.
I feel the weight of these things differently now. It's an element of this that I wish I could give back.
This is really hard, heavy work.
Yeah. And these are overlapping industries, right? The data centers industry, the petrochemical industry, coal, oil,
100%.
gas.
I mean, it's part of a big network. You can't think about it in isolation. I think about it this way, right? It starts with a bad decision to try to get fossil fuels out of the ground, right?
Yeah.
And it goes from there. And, if you're not burning it, so burning it's one part. If you're not burning it, that's the petrochemicals part.
Right.
That's where the other stuff goes, right? And then the data centers of course, Pennsylvania has, the brilliant idea, everything must go back to increasing fracking.
Right.
And data centers are the ultimate recipient of a lot of the energy from burning the fossil fuels in Pennsylvania ground. So it's all one big industrial complex.
And they're complicating the shift to renewables, right? Because
Absolutely.
we were getting some degree of traction with the shift to renewables. Not anything that we want to see, but at least having a real conversation about how to keep our grids sustainable. And that's a bipartisan conversation, right? There are plenty of Democrats and Republicans who want grid sustainability. But now that we're seeing the rise of data centers, it feels like the green light in Gatsby. Like it felt like we could reach out and now it's gone.
Absolutely. The renewables industry in Pennsylvania is sad overall.
I was going to say it is not thriving.
It is not thriving. And it's not because of the value proposition that renewables add, because the value proposition is amazing,
huge,
right? Solar is now, this wasn't always the case, but solar now in 2026 is the cheapest form of energy that you can get, right? But
it's free. Minus the equipment.
Yeah, I mean, and it has great long-term steady value in addition to also being cheap overall. It provides reliable energy and income over time, right? It's fantastic.
And those are jobs that could be coming into the Commonwealth.
Absolutely.
Because we could be training kids and, people how to install and maintain and service the equipment. There is a little bit of that going on, but compared to everything we just described, we would expect to see a gold rush of that, right? And we are not.
Absolutely. And a lot of it is the fact that there are a lot of politicians and other people in Pennsylvania who are pushing as hard as they can to make sure gas succeeds and not solar, because these two industries, they are competitors. It's not everybody who says, all of the above or yes and is a little bit ignoring the reality that they compete. And the gas industry tries to take down the solar industry.
Oh, yeah.
So that is
successfully.
Very successfully. So that is a lot of why we're having Pennsylvania being deprived of the best, cheapest form of energy.
Yeah.
Which could be powering a lot of these data centers. But that's not what we're seeing right now.
Yeah. And these are policy choices that we've been making and that we are really dug in to continue to make as a Commonwealth. And we won't even get into international policy in this sphere.
But this is part of what we're changing. This is part of what we're designed to change, right? Clean Air Council, Clean Air Action, our missions are to change that mindset, to change the realities on the ground. Absolutely. To allow Pennsylvanians, to allow, Ohioans and New Jerseyans and everybody in the region to have this wonderful benefit. Looping back to the earlier part of the conversation, new things can be good, they can be bad. Solar energy technology today is doing a fantastic job of benefiting humanity. Absolutely. And that's what we need more of.
For sure. I mean, we have this issue in Pennsylvania, this cultural issue where we just cannot envision a life without fossil fuels, without these extractive industries and these processes. Another thing I think about all the time is how much simpler renewables are than fossil fuels.
So much simpler.
Right?
Oh, my goodness.
We're so used to them as a society and as a species, like, oh yeah, I just go to the gas station and put the thing in my car and then I drive off. But to get the gasoline to the stations, you got to take it out of the ground. You got to find it first. You take it out of the ground. Then you pipeline it to a refinery. You do all kinds of crap with it. You pipeline it elsewhere. I mean, I'm probably skipping a lot of steps too, but it's just the amount of infrastructure and effort. We have molded our society to pump out fossil fuels and spent countless amounts of money, and we subsidize it. The fossil fuel industry is always crying about how, you're picking winners and losers by trying to boost renewables. And it's like, we picked fossil fuels as a winner about 100 years ago, and we have embedded into the federal appropriations bills automatic subsidies that we cannot get rid of because pro-fossil fuel politicians won't let us.
And if you look at what the future of the gas industry is going to look like, you can look for what the coal industry looks like today, which is that they're begging and pleading to politicians to get subsidies, and they are succeeding.
I was going to say successfully.
Yeah. Exactly. The coal industry, the number of coal plants that President Trump has prevented from going offline because they're uneconomical, they're too expensive for people So raising everybody's electricity rates in order to prop up this failing industry, that's going to be our gas future.
Yep.
Is another failing industry that's going to leave behind a legacy of pollution, that's going to raise rates for everybody. Why not just shift now when we have the better technology right now?
It's illogical. And it really just supports a fantasy. This idea that somehow fossil fuels will be forever and always there and awesome. And then too, just it ignores economics. It ignores health impacts. And again, the trends of the world. You know, the Chinese are aggressively moving towards electrification and cornering the solar market. And they're selling those things to other parts of the world, which is gobbling them up. Meanwhile, we're tripling and quadrupling down on continuing to be a petrostate in America. Talk about a backwards looking approach to things.
And both are having direct consequences on our utility prices.
Absolutely.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
I was in a hearing yesterday where the chairman of the Pennsylvania Public Utilities Commission testified that there has been a 400% increase in transmission prices since 2021.
Wow.
In 2021, it was $3.50 per megawatt hour, and now it's $17.70, and that is only going up, 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 and people are already feeling this in their utility bills. My neighborhood social media groups are all like, what the hell is going on with our electricity bills? I myself experienced this. Last week, I learned that my utility bill was over $500 for the last month. That has never happened before. I have never had a bill that
Liz,
high.
you should be thanking your ChatGPT overlords right now. You should.
I really should, because otherwise they're just going to take over my life and destroy it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you're welcome. And also, you know, continue doing exactly what we have always done. More fossil fuels, same old crappy transmission infrastructure, electrical grid infrastructure. Let's just keep doubling down.
Yeah.
We should take
That sounds great.
You know,
Yeah.
it
I
makes
love it.
total
Okay.
sense.
I give up. Let's.
I'm convinced.
Can't beat them. Let's join them.
All right. Well, that's been it for Cleaning Up Dirty.
Yeah. Final episode.
Well, you know, and there's. Wow, you had me there for a minute, Bobby. I mean, there's
Oh my
a lot
God,
just
I've
to
been
go
so
back
captivated by the conversation. We have so much snacking to do. That's totally worth
Wow.
a peach ring.
to. Wow, that is worth a peach ring. Maybe not a watermelon ring, but a peach ring.
Just peach.
But there's so much that people can do. Just landing
Yeah.
back on reality right now, right? So, you know, Clean Air Council, this is our bread and butter, right? This is what we try to do. We try to improve everybody's lives, right? That is our goal. And a lot of these issues that we're talking about right now are things that we're really in the thick of. And I just want to you know, ask people straight up, like
Shameless promotion. Do it.
It's absolutely shameless. Sign up for our list. Go to cleanair.org/sign up. Find out more information about these issues. We provide a lot of ways for people to get directly involved.
Such as donating, right? But not limited to.
Donating is one thing too, cleanair.org/donate. But when you sign up to the list, there's also lots of actions that you can take. We send out action alerts letting people know how they can plug in and, you know, affect these issues directly. People are so much more powerful than we think, right? You
Absolutely.
know, alone we can do something. Together, we can do so much, and we are doing so much together. And it's how I make it through, right? Because this is, you know, we were saying earlier, this is hard work. This is really heavy stuff. We're dealing with big issues. We're dealing with people's lives, right? But, you know, it's exciting to be able to make the change.
Right. Really, folks listening, take Alex up on that. Check those resources out. If you don't have time to do the research, maybe choose to donate instead. I think so many people in this world who care about this stuff and are inclined to want to do something. I think there's so many folks who are like, I don't know what to do. It seems so hopeless and so overwhelming. I'm just going to, you know, keep on keeping on and do my best to get through. But that's, again, what the Clean Air Council is here for, what Clean Air Action is here for. We're teeing up these action alerts, these actions you can take to go and then send those to your elected officials to say, this is a thing that's important to me. This is a thing that you got to prioritize and make happen. And again, that's one of the most valuable things I think we do, because it is really complicated. It can be really overwhelming and really hard. And we try to tee those things up for folks so that if you do want to get involved, if you do want to be part of the solution with us, we make it as easy as possible for you.
Yeah. And there's a lot of people now who feel like it's hopeless, right?
Yep.
And, people say like doomers and doom scrolling and stuff like that. And I'm not saying like you should never doom scroll. Like sometimes you just need to scroll and let the algorithm feed you for a little bit. But
that's right.
But you actually have
praise the
so much
ChatGPT
power.
overlords.
All hell.
Yeah, thank you for the algorithm.
Yeah, it's really not hopeless. And it's one of the great things about environmental work is it's never all or nothing. Yeah. Right? It's not all or nothing. It's every degree counts. Every degree less warming counts. Every acre of land protected counts. Every ton less pollution in the air counts. Every little bit counts. This is an incredible area for making concrete differences, moving how our world is, moving how our lives look. And it's, we're not going to win everything. We know that. We're not going for all or nothing. We're going for as much as we damn can.
Yeah. With great success, right? I'm here now, so
that's right. we converted
we
Liz.
Turned a corner.
Yeah.
When we got Liz.
I brought the party. But seriously, I was going to say, like, this is really heavy topics, but we are remarkably cheery people.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe unexpectedly. What keeps you going? What helps stoke your faith and hope and determination?
Yeah. Well, I love life, first of all. You can't be all about work 100% of the time, right? And,
We're going to be sure to send this clip to your staff.
Yeah, that's right. Should really amount of work none of the time, actually. You should just selectively clip some words and string them together. Right. Or just now you have my voice. You can go run wild with that one. But yeah, I mean, it's seeing the difference. It's seeing people's lives improved. That's what gets me through the hard times with this work. Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
And sometimes you feel like you're out in the wilderness for years and years, and then you turn the corner and it's amazing. We have a lot of irons in the fire right now, a lot of things the council is working on. And we're not going to have full success on all of them, but we're going to have success on some of them. And that really gets me through.
Well, that scale with the 3 million cars, like I said, I just kept running the numbers because I thought, how is that possible? And that really puts into context the difference between individual choices and corporate choices.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my goodness. I could talk about this forever. I mean, it's like...
Follow-up episode.
I know, right?
Keeping your eyes out for it.
People sometimes think about it as a dichotomy. Well, environmentalism is about the personal choice, or environmentalism is about the collective action. And, I'll say... in my personal view, collective action gets you more bang for the buck. Personal actions matter too. I'm not saying they don't matter at all. They do. But, where you're really getting your money's worth is banding together and acting collectively.
Yeah. I love that. What a people power win.
Yeah. I mean, it's, these are bigger forces than any of us individually, right? Like, we can't go up against a giant multi-billion-dollar power plant on our own. And we don't, because, that's not the powerful way to act. The powerful way to act is to be thoughtful and get together with people and organize and make powerful action happen.
Yeah.
For
and
sure.
Protect Pennsylvania's air, land, and water from corporate choices and policy choices.
Exactly.
I think this is a great segue to ask one of my favorite questions to ask on the podcast. And I haven't gotten to ask it for a while, I feel like. But
yeah, it's
now's
been a
your
while.
time.
And
this is the moment of Sean.
Well, it's the moment of Alex, really. You might have this already in your back pocket. What's your walk-up song?
Oh, man.
What's your get pumped song?
Oh, no, I do not have this
Bottom
in my
of the ninth, 2 outs, bases loaded. You've got the opportunity to win it all. What are you walking out to? What's getting you pumped?
I'll just throw out some bands that get me pumped sometimes.
Okay. Yeah.
So there's some good bangers by Pink.
Sure.
Local
really
gal.
Great. Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
Bucks County chick. She's got some good walk-up songs.
Yeah, Against Me.
Nice.
Some great songs. Just like good, hard, fast punk rock.
Nice.
Is going to be pretty solid.
Little rebelliousness in there. A little stick it to the man kind of.
Don't Lose Touch could be a good walk-up song for you, particularly in the spirit and theme of what we were talking about, of how I'm talking about, like, I thought I lived in a certain world, and then I come to realize, I live in the natural world that people have turned into something else. So don't lose touch. Like, stay tethered to our natural world.
That's a great message.
That's right.
Yeah, that's worth a watermelon ring.
Yeah, I think so.
As I take a bite.
Liz's mouth is full. Yeah.
Well,
Take us out, Liz. Bring us on home. The mouthful of watermelon.
She's the closer.
That's right.
note to closer, don't take a bite right before the closeout. Well, Alex, it's been amazing having you on the podcast.
Well, thank you so much
Thank
for
you so
having
much.
me
This
on.
was super fun. And I mean, really, clearly, we're going to have you back at some point because I think there's so many really interesting things that we just didn't get the time to dive into today.
Yeah.
And I really hope we get to follow up because
So
it's
much more
some
we
cool
can talk
stuff.
about. And to our listeners, thanks for listening to Cleaning Up Dirty. To help us clean up dirty, follow us at Cleaner Action everywhere on social media and subscribe to Cleaning Up Dirty wherever you stream podcasts. And a big thank you to our team, the best podcast producer in the biz, Bobby Safransky,
Bye-bye.
and the best admin, legislative, and comms folks, Corinne Bishop, Emily Wildman, and Daisy Lennox.
Woohoo.
Woohoo.
Amazing team. Thanks, gang.
Thank you. This is fun.